Marinero, the Sick Podcast, the Montreal Canadiens had a couple of games on the weekend. On Saturday, they played host to the Edmonton Oilers, and the Canadiens are such good hosts that after 20 minutes of play, they trailed by a score of 3-0. On Sunday, they played host to the Columbus Blue Jackets, and after scoring first, the Canadiens were such good hosts that they gave up 4 consecutive goals to the Columbus Blue Jackets in period number 1 and trailed by a score of 4-1. End result, 7-2 loss on Saturday versus the Oilers, 6-3 loss on Sunday versus the Columbus Blue Jackets. It is the Sick Podcast, and you can follow us on all our social media channels, our Facebook page at the Sick Podcast, our Instagram at the Sick Podcast, our Twitter at the Sick Podcast, and subscribe on YouTube, Sick Podcast. It's absolutely free. And the show is brought to you by Cherry River Hard Seltzer, only 90 calories, natural flavors, no preservatives, now available in Quebec grocery stores and at the beer store. Let me tell you, I had to have several of these on the weekend after watching the Canadiens play. Mamma mia, it was really bad. All right, okay. Many things that I need to tackle here. The secret is out with Jeff Petry. Kent Hughes did an interview with La Presse newspaper on Sunday and said that Petry's situation right now is not ideal because of his family situation. His family is back in Michigan, and that the Canadiens are going to try to accommodate him. They have told him that, but at the same time, they need to find a deal that makes sense for them as well. So in the meantime, he's been told to, as long as you're wearing the Montreal Canadiens jersey, to be as professional as possible. Unfortunately for him, he failed that test on Saturday when the Canadiens were trailing the Edmonton Oilers by a score of 5-1 with about 5 minutes left in period number 2. Zach Kassian steamrolls Samuel Montembeault, who drops to the ice. His helmet comes flying off, and Jeff Petry, who clearly saw him, does nothing but go up to him and say, hey, what are you doing this summer? Where are you going on vacation? Yeah, family's good? Yeah, okay. All right, okay, bye-bye. And then at the end of the game, Petry says, yeah, and looking at the replay, maybe I should have done something, go over, say to him that's not acceptable, along with everyone else on the ice. No. You're the one who had a clear view. Don't tell anyone that you didn't have a clear view. You did. We can slow-mo now. We can picture freeze everything. Everyone knows you saw everything. Okay, Jeff? Don't try and get out of it now. You dropped the ball. You are probably a good teammate. You were not on Saturday night. You lacked professionalism. You lacked team unity. And you lacked professional pride. And it's too bad. So now, Kent Hughes has said, no, Jeff Petry didn't ask for a trade. You have to understand something. Saying a player has asked for a trade, then all of a sudden, when did the player ask for a trade? Why didn't they trade him already? Why does he want out? Everyone digs a little bit more. Doesn't look good. It's not the message they want to send around the National Hockey League that their players want out, this, that, or whatever. I got to tell you something. I have been saying, and let me find it here, since late December on the air and on the podcast, that guaranteeing that Jeff Petry will not be a Montreal Canadien next season. I've pretty much guaranteed that, right? And the reason why I guaranteed it is because a couple of days before Christmas, I sat down with someone very close to the situation and we had coffee. And this person told me after about a minute that I sat down, Jeff Petry has asked for a trade. And I said, when did this happen? 7-10 days ago. So Jeff Petry asked for a trade in mid-December. I didn't say anything because if I would have, Jeff Petry would have said, no, it's not true. And maybe even Jeff Gordon, or a member of the organization, would have said, no, it's not true. And then everyone would have said, no, he didn't. All right, so that was sent on January 11th. Petry asked for a trade a month ago. Trust me on that one. I will not say it on record because he will deny it publicly and everyone will probably believe him and not me. But that's the way it went down. He asked for a trade. And so, listen, I understand why the Canadiens didn't trade him right then and there. They needed to hire a general manager. They needed to analyze the entire situation. They probably wanted him to play a little bit better and all that stuff. But there's still some things I don't agree with here, okay? He's been wearing an A during this time. He has not been benched. He never even sat out a shift. And once again, you can tell me that it probably affects trade value. But at this point, I mean, everyone knows that Jeff Petry's a better defenseman than the way he's been playing. He's going to be 35 next year in December. People know what they're going to get if they pick him up in the final 3 years of his contract. I don't think it's a very good example. Yeah, and so the sooner the better, all right? So they know he wants out. He requested a trade. They're going to try and accommodate him. And although the Canadiens, I think, are okay with where they are in the standings from a draft point of view, the worse they finish, the better chance they have at the number 1 pick. At the same time, they want to have a hardworking team. And if they fall short, they fall short. But they don't want to have people that don't want to be here. They don't want to have people throwing in a towel. They don't want to have people not sticking up for their teammates. So, listen, I understand the human part. Don't get me wrong. His family's in Michigan. They found it tough in Quebec. But at the same time, he made a pretty good living here in Quebec and made a lot of money. And so, yeah, it's not easy when your family's away. But part of being a professional playing at that highest level is that you have to step up in adversity. And there's some adversity here for Jeff Petry. And I know it wasn't easy. But quite frankly, he didn't handle it very well. And I'm pretty disappointed about that. So anyway, that's one of the hot topics that we needed to talk about. Another one was that Carey Price, for the second time in 7 months, addressed the media. Now, he addressed the media in mid-September. I believe he spoke with Dave Stubbs and just Dave Stubbs of NHL.com. But this was the first time in 7 months he went in front of the camera. It was on a Zoom call. He took questions from the media. It lasted about 15 minutes time. And the two things that we can take out of that is he's feeling good mentally, which is great to hear. Physically, still a lot of questions remain to be answered. So he said in the next month here, we're going to find out a lot more about his knee, in which he had surgery for a meniscus injury in the offseason. And there still are a lot of questions that remain to be answered. He talked about his burning desire to come back, doesn't want to go anywhere, wants to play for the Montreal Canadiens. And look, there's a couple of things we need to understand. If Carey Price, and it's a big if Carey Price wants out, he's not going to do an interview and tell you he wants out, the way Jeff Petry didn't do an interview and tell you that he wants out either, right? Those are things that, discussions that take place behind the scenes. I believe that Carey Price wants to come back. I believe that Carey Price wants to test out his knee. I believe that he's burning to come back. That's the competitor in him. There's no doubt about it. Do I think he's going to finish his contract with the Montreal Canadiens? No, I do not. Being goalie for the Montreal Canadiens for close to 15 years, it's pretty remarkable when you think about it. And based on where the Canadiens are at this point in time and based on where they want to go, let's face it, a goalie eating up $10.5 million on the cap who's going to be 35 in August, who's a declining asset and is not the goalie that he used to be because of these injuries, they'd rather part ways. But I think one of the things that we have to start thinking about right now, if Price's knee is not at 100% and it gets in the way of him playing to his ability, could we be looking at an LTIR situation going forward? And you know what? Ben Bishop, at 35 years of age, or 34 years of age, same age as Carey Price, had to retire. A big goalie, very big, about 6'7", 215 pounds. I would say Carey Price is probably about 6'2", 6'3", 210. That's a lot of strain and a lot of pressure on your knees. So I think that's something to think about. Marinaro, if you want to go out and get a Carey Price jersey. Who knows how much longer he'll be here? Or a Jeff Petry, or any team, any league, any sport. SportBuffShop.com for all of your officially licensed sports apparel and our sick merchandise. In Mosey too now. Use code SICK15 for 15% off on all of their items. All right. The Canadians are in a bye week. Kent Hughes met and chatted with Carey Price. Kent Hughes chatted with Shea Weber. Says that he'd like to keep him around in some way, shape, or form and have him involved with the organization. Doesn't know which role yet. In this bye week, he's going to meet with Dominic Ducharme. They're going to sit down. They're going to talk about playing philosophy. They're going to talk about what they do with D-zone coverage. They're going to talk about Ducharme's plan for Suzuki, Ducharme's plan for Caulfield. This is stuff that Kent Hughes already told us in recent interviews over the last week. These are things that he wants to find out about. So a lot of people are saying, is this the week that he's going to relieve Ducharme of his duties? Because, of course, he meets with him. If he doesn't like what he hears, he relieves him of his duties. He brings him another coach to coach between now and the end of the season. And you have the bye week for that coach to get prepared and all that stuff. Look, if he's going to relieve Dominic Ducharme of his duties in season, it's going to be this week. They have a bye week. No better time to do it than now, but I don't think he will. Jeff Gordon said he would not make a coaching change this season. Kent Hughes comes in. He sees Dominic Ducharme for what? 7 games or whatever it is, and then 6-7 games, and then he's going to get rid of him too? I don't think so. And by the way, look, the Canadians don't want to lose. For sure they won't. But now that they're losing and now that they're last, at this point, if you're going to be bad, you might as well be terrible to give yourself, once again, the best chance at the draft. You think they're going to actually change coach, bring in a new coach, get a jolt of energy from that new coach? All of a sudden, they win 6 games out of the next 9, and then they win 4 games out of the next 7, and then they win 5 games out of the next 9, and then all of a sudden, instead of picking first or picking second or picking third, they have the 6th pick in the draft. I don't think they're going to do it that way. I think they're going to give it at least a season, and they're going to reevaluate the job that Dominic Ducharme did or didn't do in the offseason. During this bye week, I really hope they tackle the Caden Primo situation. Look for a backup goaltender. Don't keep Caden Primo here. He's clearly struggling with his confidence. Almost every other shot, he's looking behind him. He looks pretty small for a guy who's got a really, really big frame. Speaking of big goaltenders, he's not ready. And you're killing his confidence. He's got like 65 games at the American Hockey League level. He should be playing about 150 by the time he actually gets called up full-time. And so I hope they bring in a backup goaltender to Samuel Montembeault. Another player we need to talk about. On the weekend, Arturi Lehkonen picked up 3 points versus Columbus. A goal and 2 assists. He's in the final year of his contract. He makes $2.3 million a year. He's 26 years old. He's 4th on the team in points. He's 4th on the team in goals. Add it all up, he's a player that other teams would love to have. I would sit down with Arturi Lehkonen and I'd have a discussion with him and say, Arturi, what are we looking at, or with his agent, for your next contract? And hear me out. If the contract is affordable for a guy that might be a 4th liner next year or a 3rd liner at best, I'm going to surprise you with this one, but he's the kind of player I bring back if the contract makes sense for a guy that would be on a 4th line, at best a 3rd line. Why? Because you can't trade everybody. You're going to need other guys to show some of the younger guys the way. You want to have a working culture, and he might not be the best player in the world, but he works all the time. He's low maintenance. He's not going to give you any problems. Now, if he's asking for, $3.5 million a year, then with all due respect to Arturi Lehkonen, you don't have to bring him back, and you could trade him. Petry has to go. You don't want it lingering in the locker room. Doesn't want to be there. Everybody knows that he doesn't want to be there. My mother doesn't watch hockey, and she knows that Jeff Petry doesn't want to be there. All right? So the sooner, the better. Ben Sherratt, his contract's up at the end of the year. You're going to lose him for nothing. You have to trade Ben Sherratt. Perreault and Paquette, I'm not so sure what you can get, but they're not going to be back next year. So whatever you can get, you can get. If it's a 6th round, a 7th round, an 8th round, whatever. I don't even know how many rounds there are anymore. You take what you can get. Marinaro, matrixhomefitness.ca. Bring it home. Discover a club quality workout in the comfort of your own home. Visit matrixhomefitness.ca. I have the Matrix T75 treadmill with the XUR console. I'm able to watch Netflix. I'm able to go to one of their programs. I'm able to do interval training. I'm able to go to YouTube and watch the highlights. I'm able to go on my social media. I actually go on YouTube and I watch the Sick Podcast. You do too. And don't forget to subscribe. And by the way, pick up a treadmill or elliptical or a bike. They have amazing cardio equipment. That's it. It's a bye week for the Canadians. The good news is you won't get frustrated. You won't get upset this week. You can relax, try and forget about everything. And then it's going to be All-Star weekend. And then you come back for the final stretch. And then I'll be back as well. Once again, follow us on all our social media platforms. Marinaro and Mosey too now. It's Marination, the Sick Podcast. Tell your friends about it. This podcast is sick. Until then, have a couple of Cherry Rivers. Montreal Canadiens. Salute.